Test, test. Good morning, everyone. How is everyone doing? Good. On behalf of the Swiss Consulate in Vancouver, I would like to welcome you all today to the second event of the second Swiss Innovation Fest Vancouver with a focus on clean tech. My name is Tamara Shtanova, and I'm the Science and Technology Officer at the Swiss Consulate in Vancouver. So in my role, together with my colleagues who are present today, Stephanie Wunderlin, the Public Officer, and the Consul General Thomas Schneider, we are part of the Public Diplomacy team, and we facilitate connections between Western Canada and Switzerland in the areas of research, technology, innovation, arts and culture, as well as business. And I will be your MC this morning. I hope you had a little bit of coffee or tea right outside, and then we have a good program today. We'll start with the welcome speeches as well as with the panel discussion, and then there will be time to network and mingle later today. As I already mentioned, today is the second Swiss Innovation Fest Vancouver event. The Swiss Innovation Fest Vancouver started actually 2 years ago when my colleagues Nina Bader and then Scott Mallory from ISM, who is here today, as well as our Consul General at that point, Andreas Rufer, decided to celebrate and put Switzerland on the map and then create a platform for the collaboration. And then back then in 2022, we focused on the intersection of art and science, as well as on the existing collaboration between Triumph, the particle accelerator on the UBC campus, as well as CERN, the largest research institution located in Switzerland. And then back then, we already understood how important it is collaboration and research collaborations, and this time center and explore the exhibition that we have brought today together with Simon Fraser University. And now I would like to pass the microphone to Dr. Aftab Erfan, the Executive Director of the SFU Center for Dialogue, where we are here today. And then Dr. Erfan leads a very passionate team at the Center of Dialogue, and then they all together facilitate dialogue and engagement with the purpose for social change. Previously, she served as the City of Vancouver's inaugural Chief Equity Officer, and then she is a long-standing scholar and practitioner in the field of inclusion and social justice. I encourage you to seek conversations with her later today during the Mingle session. I believe with a background of environmental science and urban planning, she will bring a lot to today's conversations about smart and sustainable cities. Fun fact, I just read recently that Dr. Aftab Erfan is cautiously optimistic about the future of humanity. So that's something that she mentioned a few years ago, so I was wondering if that's still the case. Yes, absolutely, coming up.
Awesome. Thank you for having me here. Some days more optimistic than other days. I think, you know, I'm following all the stuff that is happening, you know, what the climate change panels are putting out. And it's not great news, but it's also a little bit less bad than I think. And there's some, I do feel like, you know, there's some good news in rooms with people like yourself who care about these issues and who are coming together and trying to sort it out. So try to keep myself in the optimistic mind as much as I can. Welcome here. My role this morning is just to say a very brief welcome, and I'm just going to start by paying our respect to the indigenous people of this land, the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people. For those of you who are from around here, you know that this is a kind of regular part of the way that we open our meetings. This part of the world, when folks from the UK and Western Europe arrived here, this part of the world was actually never settled through treaties. So it's technically stolen land. Like we are on, literally on stolen land, have been here for a long time. And so that kind of engagement with the indigenous groups here is an ongoing project and very important to a lot of us. So the land acknowledgement, which is what I'm offering, is a way of reminding us of that and a kind of intention setting that the solution that we come up with are serving the indigenous people of this land first, and is working to kind of undo some of the harm that has been done over the past few hundred years. The other thing about land acknowledgements that I love, they're actually an indigenous custom. So before colonizers arrived here, there was a tradition, and it's ongoing, that when an indigenous group goes to visit another indigenous group, you go to see another band or another nation, there is an offering of land acknowledgement. So you would say, I acknowledge the ancestors of this place. And it's a way of saying, I'm here recognizing you. I'm not here to take your land or wage war or, you know, steal. I'm here to create with you or to teach or learn or trade or whatever it is. It's a declaration of good intentions. And I love that as a framing of why we do land acknowledgement, and I think it's very appropriate in a setting like this. It's like we are coming with good intentions, which seems very important. I just a word about the Center for Dialogue and maybe this building a little bit. One of the funny things about Canada is that we set up here with the United States, and I think the most of the world sees us as kind of this North America, but in terms of governance, the innovations in democracy, we actually have a lot more in common with Europe and with South America. So a lot of the experiments that are happening in Canada are similar to ones happening in Switzerland and elsewhere in Europe and other parts of the world. So the one that I'm thinking about at the moment is the innovation of residence assemblies or citizens assemblies, which is this idea that you bring a representative, kind of like a mathematically representative subgroup of the population of, let's say, a city or a nation or a province. You bring them into the room to deliberate about important policy issues, and then you take their direction. Ideally, you take their direction. And so, you know, it's like a lottery system, and they're kind of chosen to represent the whole spectrum of the community. And the first of those assemblies actually happened in this building downstairs in the Asia Pacific Hall about 20 years ago. It was a residence assembly for electoral reform in BC. And at the time, president of Simon Fraser University chaired that assembly. And then there's been a lot of uptake elsewhere in the world of that model. We are currently here working on 3 residence assemblies at the municipal level, focusing actually on city issues, the creation of community plans, how do you integrate environmental and social considerations together. So that's a very alive conversation here. And I'm happy to chat with folks during the break and after the panel. Really glad you could come. I hope you enjoy the morning today. Thank you for organizing. Cheers.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arfan, for hosting us today and for your wonderful, kind words. With that, I would like to turn the floor over to the Ambassador of Switzerland to Canada and the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, Olaf Kielsen. Mr. Kielsen has been part of the Federal Department of Foreign Affairs since 1994, and then he has held various diplomatic roles, including postings in Moscow, New Delhi, Warsaw, Brussels, and Athens. And then we're very grateful to have Mr. Kelson as the head of our diplomatic mission in Canada, and also bring in his extensive experience in economic affairs and cross-border collaboration. The floor is yours, Mr. Kelson.
Thank you very much. Dear guests, can you hear me? On behalf of the Embassy of Switzerland in Canada, I warmly welcome you to the Smart and Sustainable Cities event, which is part of the Innovation Fest 2024 in Vancouver. I'm pleased to see you all here today for this panel discussion. Throughout the 2-week program, we aim to bring science, technology, and society closer, demonstrating how clean tech innovation impacts the present and future of everyone in the global community. I extend my gratitude to our partners, without whom this event would not have been possible. First, I'd like to thank the Simon Fraser University, one of Canada's leading universities committing to addressing climate change and sustainability. Both the Simon Fraser University and FSU's Morris J. Wosk Center for Dialogue, where we are gathered here today, create a real-world impact for society's most pressing challenges, fostering creative interaction and building bridges between students, faculty, researchers, governments, industry, and our communities. That is almost exactly what modern diplomacy is about. We are thankful for the work of the Renewable Cities platform at the Simon Fraser University Center for Dialogue, which accelerates the transition to renewable, restorative, resilient cities throughout critical research, community engagement, and policy innovation. Further, I express our appreciation to our partner, ABB Canada, for supporting this initiative. ABB is a leader in developing solutions that advance smarter cities in Canada. By leveraging digital and operational technologies, they empower people to live, work, and travel in safer and more efficient environments. From intelligent energy and water management to transportation solutions, ABB plays a critical role in enhancing urban resilience. Additionally, the products and advanced technologies enable smarter buildings, providing real-time information, reducing carbon footprint, and facilitating data-driven decisions for sustainable urban living. Finally, I thank our community partner, ISM Arts and Culture, the creative agency and startup incubator focusing on social innovation, for supporting the Consulate General of Switzerland in Vancouver and the Swiss Innovation Fest for the second time. With its holistic approach to working with people and organizations, ISM is driven by passion and defined by creativity and impact, qualities that are crucial as we tackle climate change. Switzerland and Western Canada share many progressive approaches to urban sustainability. In fact, Zurich, Lausanne, and Bern receive recognition from various institutions as some of the most environmentally conscious cities in the world. Similarly, Vancouver maintains its status as one of Canada's most sustainable cities, with one of the lowest greenhouse gas emissions of any major city in North America. Moreover, many other cities in Western Canada are actively implementing smart city strategies, including Edmonton, Calgary, and Kelowna, to name a few. With sustainability taking precedence in governmental, academic, and business sectors, both Switzerland and Canada stand as front runners in promoting green initiatives and fostering urban innovation. And yet, there's so much to learn from each other as trusted partners. I firmly believe that the multi-level and multi-stakeholder collaboration is key, the reason why we're gathered in this room. Today, our distinguished panelists from Switzerland and Western Canada will provide a practical look at how to achieve net zero carbon targets in cities and how we can work together to make cities more resilient and sustainable. Throughout today's panel discussion, I hope you will learn more about Switzerland and Western Canada, how they are pioneering smart city initiatives and laying the groundwork for further sharing of expertise in smart technologies that improve the quality of life for urban communities. Indeed, the present and future of humanity are urban. Switzerland and Canada have great potential to inspire other nations to change. Before concluding, I would like to thank and congratulate the Consulate General of Switzerland in Vancouver for their outstanding work in initiating, organizing, and carrying out this Innovation Fest. It is, of course, a teamwork, but I would like to highlight the roles played by Consul General Thomas Schneider and by Tamara Shtanova, who have devoted so much energy and time to the success of this program. I wish you a pleasant morning and an enjoyable rest of the Swiss Innovation Fest. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Ambassador, for joining us today for such an important occasion. And now I would like to invite Patrick Berchi to the stage, our guest from abroad, from Switzerland. Patrick is a senior consultant, Clean Tech and Infrastructure, Switzerland Global Enterprise. Switzerland Global Enterprise, or how we call it, SGE, is the official Swiss export and investment promotion organization with offices throughout Switzerland and also abroad in over 30 countries. Patrick, together with his network, supports Swiss SMEs in their international business. After graduating from ETH as a geomatics engineer and completing Masters in Management Technology and Economics, he has worked for over 10 years in various international engineering and planning companies. Patrick, I would like to invite you to the stage.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, my big hobby is running. And as you have heard, I graduated as an urban planner. And my current occupation is trade promotion. So this combination, it's very horrible here in Vancouver. Why is it very horrible? So, because it's not horrible because there are no possibilities to run here. It's horrible because on the nice running trainings, I see so many things related to urban and rural planning, as well as to clean tech and business opportunities, that I always have to stop, to look, and to take photos. So at the end, my runs here, they take forever, and the distance made is almost zero. And of course, I always make a comparison to Switzerland, my home country. What is similar between Canada and Switzerland? What is different? What is better solved here in Vancouver? What is better solved in Zurich or Bern? And this brings me directly to the topic of the Clean Tech Fest. Where can Canada and Switzerland share experience and learn from each other? Where can Canada and Switzerland collaborate to innovate? And already after one run in Vancouver, the list of topics to collaborate is quite long. It's about public transport for urban areas. It's about walkways and cycling lines. It's about sustainable powering systems, not only for e-cars, but also for heavy vehicles. It's about energy efficient buildings. It's about the urban renewal by, at the same time, the protection of building monuments and cultural heritage. It's the efficient production of renewable energy under difficult weather conditions, when there is hail, when there is rain, when there is snow. And it's the water and wastewater management. And after another trail run in the surroundings of Vancouver, the list of topics to collaborate became even longer. Sustainable transport solution in rural and mountainous areas, a smart infrastructure in rural, sparsely populated areas, challenges that have both countries, Canada and Switzerland, and as well the mitigation and the management of natural disaster risks by smart systems. And last but not least, smart solutions for a sustainable agriculture. And I'm sure after my next runs, the listing of collaboration topics would become longer and longer, but luckily, I don't have to wait till my next run, because today's Smart City event will already bring additional collaboration topics to the table. And furthermore, I want to point out two topics of high potential collaboration between Canada. I'm so impressed here in Vancouver about the accessibility to all facility and public transport for people, for people with disabilities. I really like that, and I think here Switzerland can learn a lot. And another point for collaboration, I really like here to be at the center for dialogue, because for me, public participation is key in the field of innovation, in the field, on the way to a clean future, because by involving the population in finding the right solutions, we have two big advantages. One big advantage is we multiply the number of intelligent brains and solution providers massively by involving the population. This is open innovation. And secondly, we increase the acceptance of environmental solutions in the populations as they were part in the development process. And acceptance, as I've told, is key for a successful implementation. And yeah, almost forgotten, as told at the beginning, I'm not only a runner and urban planner, I'm trade promoter too, and according to the employment statistics of Vancouver, the number of green tech jobs in the city and surroundings has increased by 35% between 2007 and 2018. I don't have younger numbers, but I'm sure this curve has already increased after COVID, and I'm even sure that this curve will further go up within the next year and decades. And the basis for that is innovation, and this is enabled via initiatives like the Cleantech Fest we have here. So I look really forward to today's event and to the whole Cleantech event. Thank you very much. Take all my things, Tamara.
Thank you, Patrick. I know you have your running shoes on, but please don't run away. We have a lot more with it today. Okay, great. And now I would like to invite our moderator and our panelists to the stage. I'm curious, how many of you have taken public transit today? Good, that's such a good number. I think it's the right time to start talking about the path to net zero in the city premises. I would like to first introduce our wonderful moderator today, Kristi Shalla, the Innovation Commissioner from the Swiss Business Hub USA. Kristi is a senior smart city consultant, and she brings about 15 years of global development expertise today to the room, spanning across US, Asia, and Europe. She's also a published book author. Her book just came on Smart City, just came out a few days ago, so kudos to you. Currently serving as the Innovation Commissioner at the Embassy of Switzerland in Washington, D.C. She specializes in fostering innovative ecosystems. So prior to her role in D.C., she led project development at the Center of Transport, Innovation and Transport in Barcelona, cultivating public and private partnerships in smart transport and smart city research worldwide. Her focus areas include urban mobility, smart city development, and international expansion. And fun fact about her, she is the since we're talking about cities today, she's a lucky city's charm, because every city she visits, they win a national or international championships. Not every. All right, Kristi, the floor is yours, and I would like to invite the panelists to the stage as well.
I don't know when the hockey championship is, but I'm available. So I'm going to let each of the panelists introduce themselves. I always think that's a little bit more effective. We'll start here with Sandra Phillips, who is the founder and CEO of MoveMe.
Thank you. Yes, founder and CEO of MoveMe. Have two hearts in my chest, the Swiss one and the Canadian one. Have dual citizenship. Been here for a long time. Not going to count the years. Really heavily involved in shared mobility. I call myself a shared mobility architect as well. It's really figuring out how do we move transportation away from personally owned cars to systems that are shared, whether that's car sharing, bike sharing, public transport, how do we connect all this together? I've been at this since 2010. I'm actually one of the people that got one of those green jobs when there was the green job initiative in 2010 with Car2Go, introducing that program here in Vancouver. I've done projects on shared mobility across the globe. We're very unique. MoveMe is very unique in our expertise, and I've worked on all inhabited continents on projects on shared mobility. Fun fact about myself, my favorite travel mode is actually multimodal. So I don't like to pick, and maybe it's because I just don't like to make a choice, but I actually like to stitch things together.
Thank you, Sandra. And I'm very excited about this because I actually, even though I don't live in Canada or in the Vancouver area, I know of MoveMe and a lot of the work that you're doing. So I'm excited to hear things that you have to say. Our next panelist is Leanne Sawatsky, the interim executive director of the Simon Fraser Renewable Cities Office.
Thanks. Yes, my name is Leanne Sawatsky. I am interim executive director of SFU Renewable Cities, and we are an initiative based at the Morse-Wask Center for Dialogue. These are complex topics that we're talking about today. And at Renewable Cities, we understand that cities are facing huge and complex interconnected issues. So we have siloed actors, we have entrenched systems. And so we're working to address some of these challenges through two sort of main forms of activities. One of those is through research, applied research, and some analysis. And really we do that with the intention of feeding into our work on engagement. And this is where we're interested in convening a diverse set of actors to really work on these challenging topics together and to look for durable solutions that can address a multitude of challenges that we're facing in what sometimes we refer to as a polycrisis. Ultimately, our goal is to help cities to become more equitable, livable, and resilient. And so we're hopeful that this approach will help contribute towards that. We share SFU's vision for an inclusive and sustainable future. And we know that societal systems do not automatically transform when we have technology or technical know-how at our fingertips. It takes more than that. We're working in times of complexity, and we need tools that can help us to address that complexity. And for us, dialogue is one of those tools. Dialogue helps us to make sense of things together, to look at the system, to understand what's happening in the broader system, to build reciprocal relationships, to build understanding and trust, and to help those relationships to sustain us through with some of the solutions that we're working on. At Renewable Cities, we have a couple of areas of focus. So we're working mostly with areas of focus on housing and transportation. And surrounding all of that is land use. It's a huge factor in all of when we're talking about how cities are built. And so if I just give one quick example about what that looks like for us, we're really keen about solutions that are multi-solving. So maybe having co-benefits across a number of different areas by one specific initiative would be an example. So if we think about prefabricated mass timber buildings, then we're also thinking about, can we have it strategically located in transit-oriented areas? Can we have those buildings designed to be sociable so that we can address social isolation, so that we can have high-performance buildings that don't have high emissions, and that there's some resilience being built in there, because we need social resilience, and social resilience is so intricately connected to climate resilience, and those two pieces are bound together. So that's kind of our work at Renewable Cities, and yeah, I'll pass that back to you.
Yeah, thanks, Lan. Those are topics I think that are really exciting, and especially talking about smart cities, there's always that topic of resilience. So I'm very excited to hear what you have to say. And our last panelist is Professor Vicente Carabias, who came all the way from Switzerland for this. He is currently the Smart City responsible for the city of Winterthur and also the deputy head of the Institute of Sustainable Development at the Zurich University of Applied Sciences in Winterthur.
Yes, thank you. So good morning. First of all, thanks a lot to the Consulate General of Switzerland for having me here on the occasion of the Swiss Innovation Fest. Gave me the opportunity to meet several universities in Alberta and in British Columbia, and we have heard from the previous speakers that it's all about exchanging knowledge, exchanging experience, to learn together, to improve the world we live in. And I think that's a great opportunity also for universities to collaborate in research, in student staff exchange, and that's what I'm glad that I can explore it here with so really high ranked and so well known and really great universities. It's a great opportunity for us. So yeah, I'm working in sustainability research for more than 25 years. I studied environmental sciences at ETH Zurich from 1990 to 96, and so over this time I did experience an own transition, let's say. I started with projects in ecology, then it went over to social ecology, then the whole Agenda 21 with local agenda, sustainability research, monitoring, indicator system, then went on. And now, for more than 10 years, this new concept of smart cities has come up, which brings more, in addition to the knowledge we have from sustainability research, where we strive for environmental sustainability, social equity, and economic development in a balanced way. So we are aware that we need all this to maintain and create welfare. We have now more and more opportunities through modern technologies, innovation development. And I think that's how we understand the concept of smart city. It's a holistic approach with a clear purpose of supporting cities, municipalities, regions to become more sustainable and in a smart way. So we need also educated people. That's why I think it's also great for universities to work on that. And it's all about technological but also social innovation, also bring that all together. And so my part-time employment at the city of Winterthur is interesting because it allows us to strengthen our collaboration, to get insights, what are the needs of cities, municipalities, how can we best support them, help them to achieve the goals, to address the challenges we are facing. And nice synergies also for our students, that they can really work application-oriented, and the same in research. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So let's start. My job at the Swiss Business Hub in the United States is really to promote the innovation ecosystem in Switzerland. And I promote that to North Americans, and we always say that, Switzerland is the most innovative country in the world. And when you're speaking to North Americans, that's sometimes difficult. They say, really? We are the most innovative in the world. And so but it's always a productive conversation. I think the thing that we try to stress, though, is the different approach to promoting innovation, or the different approach to innovation. I think in Switzerland it's very collaborative, and we really focus on bringing everyone to the table. My feeling is in North America it's a little bit more competitive, trying to promote innovation through competition. So in the urban environment, there are so many challenges that have come up, and there's so many pressing needs because of the way that that innovation has been approached up until now. So maybe we'll start with Vicente. You really have kind of a dual role in that you're involved in the theory at the University of Smart City Building, and also the practice in the city of Winterthur. Can you talk a little bit about setting up kind of an ecosystem for innovation in urban development, given those two roles that you play?
Yes, thank you. So I think we have heard from our previous speakers the challenges we face in urban development and what we can do. And so, well, in the city of Winterthur, we try to bridge these different stakeholders through positioning the city as an urban living lab. So we have developed the concept of WinLab, which we manage from our unit, which helps to bring together city administration, officers, staff members, with researchers, with students from academia. First of all, the local Zurich University of Applied Sciences, where I'm working for, and also with startups, with companies, because at the end it's all about implementation, And then we need also the companies, industries which help us to promote that. And not to forget, if we look at this quadruple helix, of course, people, no, it's all about the citizens, so those living in the city, those working in the city. So it's important that from the beginning we know what are their needs, how can we best support them, because I mean, those are the persons living in the city, and I mean, we are very much service-oriented working, no? We want to accommodate that, and all together, but of course I mean, from research we know what we need to do also to maintain a future life, for the future generations, no? So we strive for supporting this Sustainable Development Goal 11, which is about sustainable cities and communities. And in Switzerland, we have now also a main focus on energy transition and addressing climate change issues. So I think all this comes very much together in urban areas. No, we have really a major need to address these issues.
Thank you. Sandra and Leanne, can you comment on how the innovation ecosystem maybe is a little bit different here in Canada as opposed to Switzerland?
I can go first. I think actually we're very similar in a lot of ways, not just in the nature outside here, but a lot of things felt very similar. We both appreciate, or Swiss culture and Canadian culture appreciate collaboration, politeness, figuring things out together. I think the one thing that I realized coming from Switzerland and working, and we'll talk about that project in a little bit, on a multi-stakeholder project with public transport and three private operators offering different shared mobility services, is that one of the things that come natural to a Swiss is that democratic process on like negotiating with industry, with public administration, making sure it works for the citizen takes time. It takes a lot of time and patience, and you need to build trust, and that doesn't happen very quickly. I worked in the US for over a year, just like you mentioned, it's a lot more competitive, and the patience to work through this and build the trust and get the data, from research and academia and build it in, that's just something that naturally, honestly, came to me, and I didn't realize it until I was in that project and realized it's actually a unique skill set. And having that neutral position also of just, we figure out something that works for everyone, and it's very pragmatic. I would say the other thing that Swiss are, they're very pragmatic. You have all these different stakeholders, and obviously everybody has their own agenda, but what works for everybody together, and how can we find that one piece? And so that was key. As I said, we'll talk a little bit more in detail about that ride-link project, but that was key, figuring out what could we all agree on. And the thing everybody could agree on is we all want to get people out of their personal own card. So we just came back to that every time we hit another roadblock. So I think we're very similar. And then there's a few things that just, I don't know, it's almost like, you drink it with the water when you grow up in Switzerland. I don't know.
Leanne, do you have any comment?
Thanks. It's interesting, just actually I'm picking up on you saying it takes time. And so I think if I can provide a little bit of sort of the Canadian context, the innovation does take time, and in particular in the context of cities where we have, so we have our federal government, we have the provincial government, and we have the municipal governments. The municipal governments get their authority from provincial legislation. And in Metro Vancouver and other metropolitan areas, we have our regional governments as well. And all of these groups have some level of shared responsibility for housing and transportation. And so if we think about, how we have a shortage of housing and how we need more permanent transit funding in place, these are all really challenging topics, because it all takes time to get the collaboration between all these layers of a cake, and to overcome some of the policy inefficiencies that we're facing on these. So if I think about a specific innovation that I wanted, that sort of gets me a little bit jazzed, is there's an affordable housing project in Vancouver. It's called the Vienna House. And there's a lot of really interesting and innovative things that are happening with the Vienna House, but two of them that we at Renewable Cities get quite excited about is that one of them is that it's a prefabricated mass timber building. And so there's that low embodied carbon opportunity there. And not only is it prefabricated mass timber, but it's also being built for disassembly. So here we start to look at that full life cycle of carbon and really thinking about how are we building in a circular economy. So those are innovations that really get very exciting to me. The other one is about the built form of the building. And there is a lot of work that was put into the design of the building for being designed for social connection. And social connection is actually a huge piece for addressing social isolation, which is a very big determinant of health. And there's a group called Fluid Architecture, and they've actually developed a tool, a web-based tool, it's a publicly available tool to look at interactions that happen as a result of the way that the built form is and how a building is constructed. And so they were able to come up with some real numbers to say, here's what's really going to happen. You're going to get this % increase of interactions and potentially have that increased social connectivity that will be possible as a result of, you know, just changing the way that you're orienting the courtyard and the building. So those are all really exciting. And very recently they've broken ground. The construction's starting. I learned about this. It was the very first event that I came to that was in person coming out of COVID. And so I learned about it and I was so excited and I kind of thought, oh, it's happening. And it was, but that was, you know, it takes time. And so I think that's the piece. Everything takes time and we need things to happen quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, so those are two really great topics, transport and housing. Those are two things we really want to talk about today. So let's start with transport. It's also a topic I really love. I like really, really love. My fun fact could have been that I love public buses, which in Washington, D.C. is considered, like I've been called crazy for that. Like seriously. And I'm also really excited about transport because the public transport, because the transport's quite good here in Vancouver. And I was just in Switzerland 2 weeks ago and it was just marvelous. I mean, I think the thing is that you can really set your clock by it. I mean, it makes life just more pleasant. It makes life more predictable when you know that the bus is coming when it says it's going to come. When you know that you can get to the station 3 minutes before the train's going to leave. I mean, you can really make so much of your time when it's so predictable and it's so dependable. So yeah, I could talk about that all day, obviously, but that's not what we're here for. I think we all want to hear a little bit more about RideLink and Sandra's experience bringing kind of a Swiss model of sustainable transport to Canada.
Yeah, and for those of you who are not from the region, RideLink, literally, the welcome emails went out yesterday. So it just went live. It's a pilot. It's a collaboration between the public transit agency TransLink, Modo and Evo, the two car share providers. For those of you, again, who are not from here, if you didn't know, we have the largest car sharing fleet in North America with 3,500 vehicles between the two. And about a third of the population has one or multiple memberships, or both, essentially. And the fourth provider is Mobi Bike Share, which is the local bike share. They are at 2,500 bikes, 600 are electric. So how do we bring this all together? Well, it took a long time, going back to the time. In 2018, TransLink released an open innovation call. Part of that was to figure out the question was, how can we create a more seamless experience for people traveling multimodal? Going back to your point about reliability and punctuality, that's really 50% of our decision around transportation is based on whether or not something is reliable. So that's a huge amount. We ran a pilot. So MoveMe essentially was brought in to kind of collaborate and bring all these stakeholders together, partly also because we knew the private side, so we knew the shared mobility side and the operators really well and the ins and out of how that's phase 2. Phase 2 is a pure consumer. Still pilot, going back, we have to also work this out with people that try it and use it before we roll it out to everyone. We have 1,300 spots, and I said the welcome email went out yesterday. We had over 5,000 people apply, and we had to select. And we had to select geographically representative because as much as some of the services, like Mobi is only available in the city of Vancouver, we wanted to make sure that we include the wider Metro Vancouver region. So it's very balanced that way. It has a couple of cool features, I think, and this is where I can geek out forever. But it's based on the first pilot, as I said, it was not technology enabled with the exception of the access card. The biggest feedback we got, they wanted an app. They want an app to register, plan their trips, book the vehicle, and then pay. Everything through one. So that's what we have now. You register once. If you're from here and you've registered with both Moto and Evo, you know one of the pain points is you have to submit your driving record to both. You then have to call ICBC to send them. It's a bit of a complicated process. This is all unified. You do it once. If you're approved for Evo, you're approved for Moto and vice versa. You're just approved for cars here, basically. So that meant we standardized the process in the background. Not technology, but you know, important. You submit your payment detail once, but when you use it, it actually still shows that you paid Mobi for a trip or you paid Evo for a trip, so you still have transparency on what you actually did. This is a very nerdy, geeky detail. If anybody wants to talk to me about clearinghouse and payment systems after lunch, happy to do that. I learned way too much about it. But it's actually a really important piece to understand. And we kept the Compass card as the access token. So that's still, because that was one of the things people loved about Pilot 1, that they could just use that one card that they still already had. Yeah, going back to your question, why? And why was I so passionate? You could think, 2017 to 2024 is quite a long time. I obviously grew up in Switzerland and had the experience with SBB of using anything really, and I never owned a car in Switzerland, so I had a mobility membership and a GEA and then eventually a Halbtags. That's how I got around everywhere. I grew up in a small town that used to actually have a train, doesn't have a train anymore, it's now all buses, and I could get anywhere. And so that freedom of being able to go anywhere, I thought if we could just stitch things together here, that would be beautiful. It started with a TED Talk, actually, where I just pitched the vision in 2017. And then TransLink did the Open Innovation Call and just all came together. So very happy. Yeah, I've been very distracted this morning because I've been running one last test on the app. But yeah, as of next week, the 1,300 people that got the welcome email will download the app and start using it. So it'll be exciting. It's a 1 year. We'll collect all the data, baseline survey. There's a lot of data collection and analysis going on. And then, fingers crossed, it gets rolled out large scale.
Oh. It sounds amazing, and I've studied payment systems as well, so I know that payment systems, it's so much more important than you think it is, and it enables you to do so many things. I also love that you use the word freedom, because I'm from Nebraska originally, and I went to high school in Montana, which isn't very far from the Canadian border, and I always hear people talking about cars, equating it to freedom. And so when I was in college, then I went and studied in Germany, and I really noticed that I equate public transportation and communal transportation with freedom, because it's kind of freedom from the responsibility of a car. It's, yeah, so it's definitely a different outlook. So Vicente, do you have any stories that you can tell, or can you tell us a little bit about sustainable transport in Winterthur and some of the projects you're working on?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, thanks. So, well, to explain, a couple of years ago we had a votation in the city of Winterthur. So the majority of the population requires now from the city that we get net zero by 2040. So, and that's clear for us that if we look at the major fields of action, we have buildings and then transportation. I'm always telling to my students, if you look outside the window, it's clear where we need to be active. And that's something what the city of Winterthur is really promoting. First of all, sustainable mobility. We've heard it. So to enhance the infrastructure with bicycle lanes, we basically convert local streets into bicycle highways to enhance or facilitate to go from the south to the north in a faster way. And pedestrian, so walking mode is also very important. And in addition, of course, promote public transportation, but it's clear this will not be sufficient, I mean, to achieve by 2040. So we need also to electrify transportation, to install more charging infrastructures for electric vehicles to promote that. And I think, yeah, what Sandra said, this combination, this multimodality of transport modes, that's something which the city and which we want to offer to all the citizens, so that to have really that freedom. Sometimes you might not have time and you need to go in the fastest way from A to B, and then such an app can help you to discover how you can combine best. We have also developed at our university an app, it's called Mix My Ride, where you can mix, you can mix walking with bike sharing, with carpooling, with public transportation, with other means. You're connected to the train, so we have heard you need also a reliable public transportation system. So luckily we have that in Switzerland. That helps us for sure. And then we are now following also this concept of 15-minute city in Europe. In Winterthur we call it even a 5-minute city. So to have all the coverage of your basic needs, so very close to where you are, so that helps also in reducing transportation. So if you live close to your job or your school, then of course this would help. And if you have recreational areas also close by. And so I was impressed to see that here, I mean, with the Stanley Park, so in this area, I think you're really too good. And with bike sharing system, works perfectly. It was very easy for me. Download the app, and then immediately I could share a bike and explore. So it's really I think a very good way forward. Yeah.
And so, do you have some experience using Mix My Ride and the data that the trip change that you get for enhancing the public transportation system? I mean, I think that's something that like we don't think about sometimes, is that if we have better transport data, then our transport will eventually be better, right? Have you used that data to improve the data?
Yeah, we have. I mean, this is now still in the pilot phase, so we are testing the app. I mean, we are recruiting interested citizens, so to test the app. We have users in the city of Winterthur and Zurich, and also in southern Switzerland, in Ticino, I think in Lugano, where they are testing the app. And of course it helps us also to improve the efficient change from one mode to the other. So there, in addition, we work also with our Institute of Data Analysis, who analyzes the data and wants to optimize this I think in the special transport nodes, let's say, like a train station, there you need to optimize, because at the end it's also all about increasing efficiency, which, I mean, to save time, energy that we can use then for other purposes.
Yeah, and that ability, to make transport more practical and make your day more productive, just because transport's really supporting it. So let's go back to what Leanne was saying about housing. I think that was a really interesting topic. Affordable housing is definitely a topic that every city in the world is really struggling with. Nobody really has the answers yet, but I think it's really exciting to look at some of the things that are being done in major cities to keep housing costs down, to keep people in cities, to maintain that level of diversity, because I think what we're seeing I mean, I know that I lived in New York for 10 years, and Manhattan is now kind of very uninteresting because they haven't been able to maintain a level of diversity, so people are always having to come in and out. It's just too expensive. Vancouver is considered an expensive city. Switzerland is definitely considered expensive. So maybe Leanne would like to hear more about the Vienna House and the circular economy efforts to kind of keep some level of diversity in the city through affordable housing.
Yeah, I mean, I think any of us from Vancouver, from BC, from Canada, we're very familiar with this housing context that we are living in. It's a huge topic, so I don't pretend to have all of the answers. I think one of the fundamental challenges in the Canadian context is that our housing is not simply a dwelling for us. It is a little bit of a status symbol, and it is also hugely an investment. And for most of us, it's also a retirement investment, and our retirement funds are tied up in residential properties. So addressing the housing supply on its own is not ever going to be something that can adequately and fully address some of these affordability challenges that we're facing. There's a need for more non-market housing options to be added into the mix. So it's also about preserving existing rental stock, and it's about building purpose-built rental for folks who are just, it's never going to be attainable to purchase a house, and rentals are just the reality for many of us. There's a recent initiative in BC last year that came out. It's the newly developed Rental Protection Fund. So this allows nonprofit agencies to buy existing housing stock and to be able to have it basically into perpetuity as affordable housing. Now, this could go a little step further. So many housing advocates are advocating to the provincial government and to the federal government to have a right of first refusal for government and nonprofit agencies to actually be able to have the first opportunity to buy up existing residential housing, so that they can access and purchase that housing stock before developers get to it. If I step back just a little bit to the provincial level, we have some big innovations that are happening. A few pieces of legislation were announced in November that are all rolling through, coming down the pipe. One of them is Bill 44, which is ending some of the most restrictive residential zoning for us in the province, and that's single detached houses. So the zoning is now allowing for 2, 3, 4, and even 6 units on a single property. So that's a huge change across the province. Another piece of legislation is the transit-oriented development legislation, and this is for 800 meters around rapid transit, so SkyTrain, and 400 meters around bus exchanges. And basically what this does is it allows for new minimum levels of density or size or height of buildings that can be, so you can actually have more density around transit systems. And it also removes some of the minimum parking requirements. And so these are really massive changes that are underway right now. There's some super ambitious timelines, and they have potential to transform the region, to transform our affordability, our livability, and to make our cities more sustainable. And if I come back to put my dialogue hat back on again, it's being received with a bit of mixed reviews, and understandably, because there's a very fast timeline. June is one of these upcoming deadlines. There's a very fast timeline that mayors are struggling. Even mayors that are supportive of it are saying, we're struggling, we don't know how we're going to have the human resources to actually implement some of these requirements. And so that's where I say, where's the opportunity here to have some conversation and to sort of work through some of these pieces so that we're moving towards consensus on pieces where we can, and not just working through coercion or domination.
Thank you. Sounds very interesting. Vicente, maybe you can talk a little bit about the Swiss model. I know I've read a little bit about some of these housing co-ops in Zurich. You know, I don't know if in Switzerland there are micro apartments, but there are some solutions that are kind of coming up the pipe. And what are you guys doing in Winterthur?
Yeah, sure. So well, I think most of the Swiss cities, and not only Swiss cities, that they strive really for maintaining a social cohesion, so to try to mix people in the cities, as we have heard, in different zones. And so we do the same in winter tour. No, we have throughout the whole city. We try to have buildings where we sell properties, but then most of them are really rental. I mean, most of the apartments are rented by the citizens, by the people in the cities. And so I think an interesting approach is really to have this non-profit cooperative housing model. So these are private initiatives, but they follow a clear purpose, not to offer apartments in different sizes, affordable apartments, and they are subsidized by the municipalities. In addition, we have also social housing programs from the municipalities. But I think the most innovative are really these cooperative housings, because I mean, they're very much forward-looking, so they see the potentials. They integrate already renewables when these are new constructions. They have already in their district the model of sharing, so they are aware that most of the people, sometimes they have guests, but you do not always need a guest room, so you can have shared guest rooms. So when you have a guest, then you can share an additional, you can rent an additional room, and then you can give it free, like in a hotel, no, to the next guest from another family. So I think there are really innovative ways. And then I think these cooperative housing models, they are really interesting in that perspective, because it's like a small community. You know, they engage also very much in bringing together the people, so to enhance the quality of life. You know, I mean, to address also the like not to feel alone in a city, no, in a big city, but to really enhance this community building. And so I think a good example is the cooperative. It's called More Than Living, because they offer really more than living. No? So they offer also opportunities to engage. They offer in the same place also childcare and rooms where you can meet, cafes. So I think everything you need, no, to have a good quality of life.
Yeah, that's great. It's the sharing economy in housing. I think it's a good solution. Okay, let's move on to the topic of energy. I think we can't talk about smart cities or resilient cities without talking about energy. So again, it's decarbonization is a buzzword where we're constantly talking about how we're going to power cities through the future. I mean, Canada is a very resource-rich country, and Switzerland is a very research-heavy country, and so it seems like this is an ideal marriage. I wonder if maybe the three of you or whoever wants to start this one can talk about how you see Canada and Switzerland working together with these advantages to really come up with more innovative solutions in energy and decarbonization. I don't know who wants to start.
You want to start? Shall I start? Yeah. Oh, okay. So, well, I see a huge potential for, first of all, for research collaboration, because I think in both countries, universities are very much at the forefront of energy research to come up with new solutions, and then also with products. No? I mean, I think in Switzerland we are very proud, that there are already collaborations. I think this afternoon we will be visiting Harbour Air, which is going to use a Swiss battery. So there are already these kind of collaborations. So to enhance this electricity powered aviation, so that helps as well. But of course, in terms of buildings, so we have still a huge potential. We went up to the tower next year, and so from above, that there's still a huge potential also here in this area, or I think in all Vancouver, to install more solar power. And probably this is something which will happen in the near future. We heard or learned yesterday that, of course, you have the majority is hydropower, but that you will lack probably hydropower in the future, and that you need additional energy sources. So I think solar power is nowadays is really an energy source which pays off. So the return of investment is very fast. So it's really interesting to invest in that kind of energy sources. So I think yeah, I think together we can develop further innovations and see different ways of how to integrate the renewable energy systems within the city.
Canadian perspective.
Yeah, I mean, in talking with our partners, I feel like there's no shortage of opportunities for innovation and no shortage of challenges and interesting, like, oh, what would that look like? And where I start to think, you know, I wonder what that looks like in the Swiss context and what we can learn from you. So thinking on the research side, thinking about if there's some case studies, what are some key success factors or lessons learned or challenges that we can sort of learn from and adapt to our own context. I think that would be really helpful. A couple just kind of quick topics that are of interest. Grid optimization, so thinking about how, when we're at the planning stage of buildings, how are we planning for that solar? How are we planning for charging of EVs, but also the battery storage to be integrated into the building right from the start, from the planning, and not as an add-on later on? Another one, we're talking about decarbonization of buildings, new buildings, retrofitting existing buildings. Buildings make up 30% of a city's emissions in the Canadian context, and most of that is gas heating. How do we get our gas out of our buildings and move towards using things like renewable natural gas on the hard to decarbonize industries? So where we have heavy duty vehicles, we have a real challenge where our heavy duty vehicles, according to the Canadian Trucking Association, or sorry, the BC Trucking Association, they don't have a market viable option for heavy duty vehicles in the BC context. It's just not feasible at this moment. It's not to say for medium duty that there are options, but for the heavy duty specifically, this is really difficult to decarbonize. So how do we move quickly to, if we say use renewable natural gas, it has 91% less carbon intensity than diesel. So can we use those as some sort of interim solution? Obviously the EV is the longer term goal, but for some of these really challenging ones, how do we have the best and highest use of something like renewable natural gas?
You should contact Designwerk. Designwerk, that's a company in Winterthur who develops now e-trucks. So, and they are already in place in Switzerland and I think in Europe, so that might be a way forward.
Nice, yeah, thanks. Well, we solved that one already. Yeah, so I think, yeah, just the looking for those opportunities for collaboration. I think it's going to figuring out how do we apply these innovations to our context.
Yeah, and I mean I see that this dialogue is already producing some fruit. So I think it's almost time for us to open up to the questions to the audience. I just want to ask one more question, which is kind of very close to my heart, and that's related to history and equitable societies. I think the last 10 years, we've really started to kind of come to terms with our history and some of the mistakes that have been made, and how inequities have maybe been baked into our urban environments. So smart city development, I think, is a way that we can look forward and not only not make those mistakes anymore, but we can correct some of those mistakes. And I think I really love that here in Canada or here in Vancouver, you always start with the declaration about the unceded lands. I mean, I think that's great. I think we should do that down south as well. Definitely. But there are so many inequities. There are ways in which cities have been planned that are much more advantageous. I mean, Washington, D.C. is one of them. Certain neighborhoods are definitely advantageous, and other neighborhoods, you know, they don't have transportation or they have poor infrastructure. So I would just love to hear, maybe we can start with Leanne again, how smart city development can support equitable development and maybe correct some of these social injustices. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, just one more small topic. It's such a complex problem that we're facing in BC, and other jurisdictions have other complexities as well. each community is unique in terms of what the considerations and the context is, and so my approach tends to be more process-oriented rather than prescriptive about what exactly a solution is going to look like. It's going to take many years to undo what has taken hundreds of years to come to where we are right now. We have assimilationist policies and systemic oppression and racism that we are facing. And so for me, when I think about, if we're talking about correcting past harms, then we're talking about one of those parts is about reconciliation, and a really important part. And there's basic pieces that we have. The UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples became law in BC in 2019, and so we have a duty to uphold that. We have the Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action, and those provide us a really clear and basic, very basic starting point for any conversation, for any innovation. And our cities and municipalities in BC are interested, and they are really wanting to advance reconciliation. And there's also challenges of capacity, of education. There is sometimes a lack of clarity exactly what to do, and sometimes waiting for senior levels of government to provide a little bit more direction about what to be done, what should be done. And then there's just political will. So to your question about not repeating past mistakes and correcting harms, reconciliation is something that is really giving us the opportunity to build a better future together. And all levels of government need to be working together. And in Vancouver, we have a unique context where we have actually quite a supportive federal, provincial, and municipal context. So in the city of Vancouver, a number of years ago, we had our first Indigenous Relations Manager, Ginger Gonsnell-Myers, and she was able to go through and look at each of the calls to action in that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission gave, and think about how those could be applied in the city context. And we know that it is cross-cutting. It can't be a siloed activity. It's cross-cutting across all of our activities. If we think about municipalities specifically, land use is a huge piece. So in UNDRIP, the Declaration of Rights of Indigenous Peoples, socioeconomic well-being of Indigenous peoples is a really important piece. And so land use is a very direct connection to that. And so when we're thinking about cities, it's just like so fundamentally tied together. If I take just a little step sideways and talk about sort of equity, and I get right more into a specific topic about anti-racist transit or transit policy and what it might look like, we can think about how our cities look physically right now, and we can think about how every city has this legacy that continues right now. And in Vancouver, we have Hogan's Alley, where we had a whole black community that was displaced for the Georgia Viaduct, and that's sitting there today. And it's not an obvious or easy thing to figure out how you correct these challenges and correct these mistakes that were made, but it really starts with dialogue. For us, it really starts with dialogue and engagement. And so when you're talking about correcting past harms, or you're talking about any new project that you're undertaking, then it needs to start with having real solid engagement, not having predetermined plans ahead of time, and going beyond that bare minimum and really truly collaborating together and figuring out what does partnership look like, and then going and looking for those opportunities for reconciliation, looking for those opportunities to advance equity in whatever we're doing, because it applies everywhere, and the benefits are to all of us as a society.
Absolutely. Sandra, I'd love to hear what you have to say about transport equity, and I know that much of the work that you're doing is really about transport equity. So.
Yeah, so you asked about inclusion, diversity. I have to admit, as much as I love the shared mobility space, because I really think we can't just shift to zero-emission vehicles, we actually need to move to shared zero-emission vehicles. There's a bit of a problem. Every project where we got large sets of data, we get back the same user group. Generally, it's not across all the 80 projects, but generally there's a trend. Mostly young, mostly male, mostly well-educated, with an above-average income are the customers. Well, great, they already have a lot of options, so it's not very inclusive. And part of it is, I am now a firm believer, part of it is if you look at who's building the shared mobility system, because it's at the intersection of engineering, software development. Well, guess those are exactly the same groups. So we're having this inherent design bias, and how do we get past that? And I think one of the things we have to look at is how do we support people like, if you don't know them, look them up. Isku Air is an indigenous, female-owned airline based out of Vancouver that their main focus is to connect rural communities. Well, guess what? Because Fraser, who is the founder and CEO of that airline, that's what she knows. She built something to serve the needs she understands best. Now, one of the other pieces that I think we need to look at is procurement structure, because specifically for transportation, in a lot of cases, it's government contracts, and government, and that makes a lot of sense to me, is risk adverse. You want to make sure you get the best group, but at the same time, that excludes exactly the ones that are trying to change how the system works. So I think there's those two things that I really think we need to look at as well.
Yeah, so diversity of teams, definitely very important. Vicente, do you have any comments about maybe it's already something that's kind of well underway in Switzerland in the act that you bring a lot of people to the table always, but how are you enabling kind of more social inclusion and making sure that it's not just the same group and you're really providing equity in your smart city approach?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, in Switzerland, with our direct democracy, we have several possibilities, no, to with the referendum system to really hear different voices, different groups. And so I was also impressed to see here in the universities in Alberta and now also here in British Columbia the diversity you have already here in universities or even in the cities. No, I think that helps us to really build up these more respectful relationships among different backgrounds, different cultures, and to understand each other better. And I think, yeah, I'm more looking. I mean, I know we have to acknowledge where we come from, but well, I work more for the future, for our future generations, and I think that all helps us. No? So what we do in addition to the systems we have is in Switzerland we use now also the digital possibilities we have to enhance inclusion. Of course, not to forget those who are not digital natives, but we can do that even in the neighborhoods where we have then kind of a network of access points, like the local libraries or NGOs, the churches that they can help. So you can access, for instance, to the city administration, also to a city app. So there are, in addition to a physical desk, you have other possibilities for interaction and also among the citizens. And we have also a co-creation platform which helps also to bring together different stakeholders, startups with larger companies, with researchers, with city administration. I think we can use also digitalization to enhance the cohabitation and the living together.
That's great. Okay, so we'll open this up to questions. Anyone have any questions? Start with you. You have a mic.
In the conversation in the beginning, you all spoke about the time necessary to develop trust through democracy. I was really fortunate as a kid, as we spoke this morning, to travel to Switzerland for ski trips with our family to a town where my father used to work. I saw methane collectors way back then. Those were not new things. We're talking over 40 years ago. I was there for ski trips. I have a 15-year-old, 16-year-old, and 17-year-old kid. I don't have, my urgency is such that I don't know that we have time for traditional processes to build trust and democracy. But it has to be the underpinnings. We can't get through what we face without that, without the collaboration, without the sense that we can trust what you're saying, that in this room we have trust in each other to do the right thing. How on earth do we expedite that trust process? to face the challenges we have now that are so immediate but have to be solved, as you've already indicated, on that democracy and that trust.
Who wants to take that? How can we go faster? Is that what you're...
I mean, I feel like that's kind of the question that we all have, right? How do we, like, we are in a time of crisis and urgency, and then how can we also be talking about slowing down to, but it's also like, if we are moving at a speed that is not bringing everyone along, we are also doing that at our own risk, because it's just not going to be a durable solution. People are not going to be on board. So I don't think I have an answer exactly, but obviously you know that I have my dialogue hat on, so that's kind of my bias, is to say, like, it may take longer to get there, but what the product has will be, as my colleague Aftab says, it will be more sticky. It will stick, and it will be durable. And a lot of this pieces that a lot of the challenging a lot of the mess that we're in is because we've kind of moved more quickly than people were willing to sort of move. And I know that we have so much technical and subject matter experts. We have a lot of amazing solutions, and they're not necessarily being implemented. So where's the disconnect there? So
if I may, yeah. So, well, I think trust building is really something human, no? I mean, it's the beginning of a human relationship, no? At first, you need to build up trust, no? And I think that's key also in academia. So, I mean, it's something which in academia you have from the very beginning, no? Scientists, they gather together. And nowadays, I think, I mean, we do that in wider communities, this quadruple helix approach where you bring really all the stakeholders together. I think that's really the way forward. And I don't know how it is here in Canada, no, but in Switzerland, I mean, the national agencies, they really want to take advantage of the expertise also in science. So, for instance, Swiss Federal Office of Energy, they have large energy research programs because exactly they know that I mean, if we want to really have implemented the energy transition, we need to accelerate. So we need also research to accelerate. So they promote with huge research programs, yeah, the acceleration, so the development of innovations which can help us there. No? But I would say, in addition, of course, to accelerate, we need also clear legal frameworks. I mean, this is something which we have also seen in Switzerland. No? I mean, if we have not a clear legal framework, okay, then we have research projects, we have some pilots, but it's not really progressing. No? I mean, as an example, smart metering, the rollout only happened when we had a clear legal framework saying, okay, by 2027, all households in Switzerland need to have a smart meter, which is then beginning to build up this smart grid, no? What you were mentioning. So I think, yeah, it's really I mean, and that's why we need to take an interdisciplinary approach. No, I mean, in all our research, energy research projects, we have always our legal researchers within, so they're lawyers who work also on what kind of legal frameworks we need to accelerate all these processes.
Maybe just picking up on one point that you made, like, so we don't have just pilot, but I actually do think pilots are important to build trust, because if we're just waiting until we have the perfect research package and the perfect solution, we're never going to get there. I think is one of the reasons why we are where we are with RideLink, is because we started with a very scrappy, honestly, very scrappy solution, and just tried and tested it, and at the same time started doing the research. In this case, there wasn't necessarily a legal framework provincially that needed, a regulatory framework that needed to happen, but there was a huge legal heavy lifting on TransLink side, because they were absolutely never in a relationship where they had a software provider and then different service providers that they're not controlling, and their own, all stitched together on the one umbrella, and they're really holding basically the contract relationship with everyone. So there was a huge legal work that could start because we had that very scrappy pilot that didn't involve a lot of legal oversight, and so you could build that at the same time. So I think we need the piloting and the test trial fail. In some cases, pilots never make it, you know, but that's okay. I think we should just all be okay with that.
Yeah, and maybe one sort of one quick thing to add is, you know, I think it's also like everything that you've said, absolutely, and then you always think about all the other things that you could mention that are important. So for us, we talk about bringing a lot of like people together in a room that are across sectors. So if we're talking about the prefabricated mass timber industry, it's a little bit niche right now, right? So then suddenly you get a group of 50 people in this room in October, last October, and then you have all these people across different industries and saying, oh, we're all dealing with the same thing. And it's so clear to all of us, but we just kind of thought we were dealing with this on our own. And then you get this kind of sense of like, okay, yeah, this is definitely where we're at. And those things become really easy for us to basically articulate. Here's what everyone is saying. They know this stuff. And then we can articulate to policymakers or whoever, you know, the targeted group is to say like, this is what we're observing. This is what's happening. These are the changes that people actually agree. It doesn't mean that we agree exactly what the solution is every time, but it's like, how do you constructively move the conversation forward and quickly? You can't necessarily have like the whole city in the room, but how do you get folks that have their finger on the pulse, that are reasonably representative, that are sort of grounded in reality, daily reality? Yeah.
Back in the back. The yellow tie.
Thank you very much. Dr. Chima, I had almost 2-decade experience in sustainability and the smart cities. I was working with United Nations as well on SDGs and the European Union. Recently, we had the same discussion on trust. We have seen in semi-MO land, there was a project last year announced, biofuel plant. The technology was proven, the European company, everything was approved, but somehow the community, when we get into the community, we found out the community was not ready because there was education and awareness kind of things that we need to, the technology adaptability inside the community. So, and then they said it's probably the commercial activity and the residential land, and somehow there was fear among the community. So somehow we found the good solution, the best solution, but somehow we could not find the right way to educate the community, to find the way that we let everybody to feel the impact of those projects. So it was a commercial project, approved project, everything was fine, but somehow the community was not ready to understand that the perspective of how much value these kind of projects can bring to the community. So somehow the government, the local government, the educational institution, the fear among the public of these kind of projects and what is going to happen if these kind of initiatives will come and how much the emissions, the local emissions, the neighboring emissions, how much the quality of life is going to bring the value to the people. So that is something very important. When I went to the public, I felt there is kind of education gap and most of the people, they don't know what net zero city is, what smart city is. If you go to the public, you talk to the public, they say smart means digital. That means something China was doing, surveillance. So when you are in Europe, you talk about smart cities, so we well understood what does that mean. But when in North America, when you talk about smart city, this word smart brings surveillance. So somehow the public, they don't know what the carbon neutral is. They don't know what that means is. And affordable housing, we know how important it is, the 30% emission that you mentioned. But normal public, they don't know what these emissions are going to bring and what changes in their lifestyle. How important is it that these things must be addressed in the retrofitting or the new projects? How much important is it? If we, I'm sorry to say, BC Build has considered speed only and somehow affordability, but if our housing project consider climate emergency at the same point, we can create so much impact. And it's just the right choices. And I think the piloting is a good way of getting into. But then we have a lot of European initiatives proved, well approved. We just reorganize our scenarios, and then we just get into it. Let the public feel the difference, the impact. Then everyone will be happy. Thank you very much.
I think that's a really interesting topic. I mean, when you start talking about data related to smart cities, I mean, we often get these types of comments about, oh, you know, like doomsday scenarios about, you know, the government controlling you with data. But I mean, I think that there's a lot of responsible development. And so it's really about, I mean, data can also make your government more transparent. There's a lot of things that can be done if things are responsible, or if it's done responsibly. And so did you come up with solutions in educating the group?
Yeah, so when we got connected with some communities at the local cities, and people are really, when you let them know what is important, you know, zero waste lifestyle, the net zero lifestyle, Europe is way ahead. There are a lot of success stories. Europe has made huge success in the last 15 and 20 years. I was the part of those kind of, you know, committees as a scientist. So we found a lot of ways. So, you know, policy institutions and universities, they help us finding solutions. But somehow, every region, we just need to figure out the right choices for the immediate short-term, mid-term, and long-term. If we know the art of making those choices with planning, we can get things done more quickly, even if Switzerland is talking about 2040 net zero, right? Somehow, we can get achieved even earlier. And the Canada's 2050 plan, somehow, if we put efforts, all the departments, if come together, put the effort, let the public feel the difference, right? Then we can get this achieved even 2035. So the way we link our zero waste and net zero, and then let the public feel the difference, and then let's come together. Without taking them, as I said, the one project, this MEMO, the biofuel plant, so the more project we'll bring, so our public is not aware how much difference is going to make in their lifestyle. So net zero lifestyle, zero waste lifestyle to the public, and the solutions somehow, smart way of implementing and planning those solutions. We will talk about solution in the in the break.
So it sounds like this is a good ending to the talk, because what you're saying is that you want to use Europe as an example.
Yeah.
And all the good work that's been done in Europe. So
and believe me, we need people to translate, to relate those solutions. You know, professor is here, and our university is here. Somehow, when we translate from one environment, from one country to another country, why we need piloting? The technology somehow is proven in Switzerland, right? And then when we do piloting here, that means we just trying to make sure that our circumstances, the environment, the conditions, we just want to ensure that. But we don't need pilot to take so much long time. The problem that I'm having right now, that our piloting is taking so much long time, and somehow we get so much long because the technology is already proven. We don't need piloting for so much long. Just get it short, get it approved, just change the conditions, get it approved, and then replicate. The impact of replicating must be understood by the public, by the region, by the government.
So you're promoting international collaboration between Switzerland and Canada, which is the reason why we're here. So maybe we can end by, so we're talking about learnings through your careers working in the smart city sector. Maybe what's the most impactful or dynamic thing that you've learned that you'd like to share with everyone?
So maybe I just take up what the gentleman said. So I think at the end it's really all about knowledge and technology transfer. No, I mean, and yeah, we need to educate the future generations, and that's I mean that's our passion. No, those working in education and universities, and I think in that the universities of applied sciences are really doing great because there is a clear transfer then also from research to education, and in both ways. No, so I think there we really want to be at the forefront of cutting-edge developments, which we want to then educate the next generation so that they can then implement. So what you say, no, it's really about adopting best practices we have also in other regions and learn from each other. And in terms of communication, information, I think media play also a key role. No? That I mean to really transfer the findings, the insights, the information, so that everyone is aware and gets a clear picture of what we understand by smart, sustainable cities. Thank you.
I'm thinking about how I keep having all of these fascinating conversations with people from all of these different sectors and thinking like, oh, that sounds like a solution. And then I talk to that person about that context that they're dealing with. Oh, that's very complicated and complex. And just thinking about how each of us are really, we all have like a pretty strong, we're all subject matter experts in a specific thing, right? And it totally varies with our lived experience and with our education and all the things that we bring. And so I just am, I think the thing that I'm carrying with me and learning about is just how to be really curious so that I can make some of those connections when I'm, and really listen so that I can, figure out where some of those useful connections might be made.
This is so funny because I was just going to say, I'm like, obviously I can't decide just one thing, so I have three things. But one, echoing what you just said, is this mindset, I call it flux mindset, like things just constantly change. I think that's the other thing. Maybe it used to be different when my grandparents were building things. I don't know, really, because I obviously wasn't there. But today, things constantly change. Sometimes even beyond our control, right? So I think that open mindset, that flux mindset, going and figuring out the fear of failure. It took me a long time, and that's maybe also kind of Swiss heritage, very risk adverse. Let's make sure I really know all my data points, and just going for it, and that bridging that gap, understanding that it's sometimes okay, even if I don't have all the answer, because the environment might change anyway. And then I think the last thing is getting outside of our echo chamber. I love this, and I love all stakeholder engagement thing, but actually really on the street, having conversations with people that are telling me that they can't use shared mobility for lots of reasons actually enlightens me way more sometimes in my work of what we should maybe be doing different than, like, as I said, I love all of this, but I think really going outside of these meetings is the other big learning, because ultimately it's about changing minds and behavior, and that only happens with the connection with everybody on the ground that is outside.
Well, I think we're over time a little. Oh, do we have another question over there?
Slido? One Slido question? Sure, we have people online watching as well, and they were able to submit some questions. So one of them would be, how is smart and sustainable planning keeping pace with current and future changes in demand? For example, post-pandemic home working, increased use of electric vehicles, etc.
So, well, I mean, what we have seen during the lockdown is really the fast upcoming of digital interaction means. No? And I think, guess we can that see everywhere, but also in university, we use that much more for interaction, also at international level. So we travel less around. No? And the first question when I was invited to come here was, is there no chance to join the panel online, no? And then we started discussions, and then luckily the organizers managed to organize a great program, so that it was really also worth, you know, to fly over to meet people. But I think, I mean, now, you know, to follow up, our next steps will then all be online, no? Because we have now an initial gathering. We know each other, we trust each other, and from now on we have the digital means, so we can really continue online, so that will save us transportation, save us energy, greenhouse gas emissions. So I think that's really something, yeah, what we take with us, and what gives us also more flexibility, you know, that sometimes we can work from home, we can work from wherever, and we can still be connected. No? I think in that, digitalization is really doing great. So, and the second question, yeah, I think, I mean, if we were talking that we want to achieve net zero also in transportation, no? I was saying that we need to electrify also more, and for that, yeah, it's clear. I think that was addressed also by Leanne. So this balance, no, this grid stability, that's something which we still need to work on. But I mean, the development of the charging infrastructure, I mean, this will take some time, no? And at the same time, of course, we need to work also on how to ensure the grid stability, and I think there we have, at least in the city of Winterthur, great collaborations also among universities and the energy suppliers, our utility, to ensure that once we are there, that especially also using more renewable energy sources which are fluctuating. So of course it's something we need to deal with, but we are working on that. Yeah.
And we have one more that we would like to ask the panel. Just one second. It was about material. We heard about mass timber, for example. So where do we go with resources, innovation in building materials, etc.? Where do we stand with innovation there in Switzerland and in Canada? Material regarding material, building material, for example. It wasn't that specific, the question.
There's a lot of innovation going on in Switzerland in that area. I think kind of on a smaller scale, but material science is something that we're focusing on a lot. Like I promote battery technology a lot, and so it's recycling materials for batteries. We also focus on just kind of recycling cement, recycling any type of material. I mean, if anyone has questions about that, I'm happy to send them information about what's happening in Switzerland in that area.
Yeah, and there's going on lots of research in building material. We had also a chance to visit BCIT, where we have seen how they take advantage of the experiences we have in isolating buildings, so towards zero energy buildings. I think that's also something which can learn also from the past, no? When they even built thicker walls, and in the south, no, you had really a cool atmosphere inside the house, despite having more than 40 degrees outside. So I think that's something where what we are working on in Switzerland. We have different research institutions like EMPA. It's the Federal Institute working on material research, and what you mentioned, I think we are working more also towards circular buildings, so to recycle construction material, which will also help us in terms of energy transition and climate change.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you very much to our panelists. To our moderator, and for interesting and very inspiring conversation. And I'm sure you have a lot more questions, and then you will be able to ask them during our networking session. Before we start our networking lunch, I would like to let you know what is happening in the next 2 weeks as part of the Swiss Innovation Fest Vancouver. So on April 9 and 11, in collaboration with Foresight Canada, Volition, ISM Arts and Culture, and EPFL Innovation Park Switzerland, we will be offering a series called Bringing Swiss Clean Tech Startups to Canada. We will have Swiss clean tech startups and SMEs learning about the Canadian clean tech market, about the opportunities that it offers. They will be learning how to develop a Canada-specific pitch, and then they will be presenting it to Canadian audience and investors for a chance to win some prizes. On April 11, I'm inviting all of you to Vancouver International Film Festival to watch a Swiss documentary. We are having a North American premiere of the Swiss documentary called The Value of Things. I also encourage you to, of course, come into VIF on April 11, but if you're not able to, or if you're a part of our virtual audience, you are welcome to join us on April 24th to 28th and watch this documentary from the comfort of your own homes. My colleague Stephanie Wunderlin is running the Swiss Film Club, and it will be offered for online viewing as part of the Swiss Film Club. And then on April 16, we will conclude with another panel discussion, which will be offered online virtually, and then we'll be talking about decarbonization. So the panel discussion is called Swiss-Canadian Dialogue on Decarbonization, and then we will have panelists from Swiss leading institutions, EPFL, ETH, and then Hochschild Institute, joining for a dialogue with our Canadian counterparts from Fraser University and the University of Victoria, and they'll be talking clean energy. So you are all welcome to join us online. You have some flyers on your table, so feel free to sign up for this panel discussion. And then we'll be back in the fall with another event on clean and sustainable energy at the University of Calgary. We will have a cohort of Swiss PhD students and postdocs joining the Canadian students from Simon Fraser University for the I2I Invention to Innovation cohort, learning together and gaining entrepreneurial skills and how to put their inventions to the market, to commercialize it. So please check our website, innovationfest.net, as well as the flyers on the desks for more information about what's coming in the next 2 weeks. Before we start the lunch, I would like to say a couple of thank yous to a few people in this room without whom this event series would not be possible. My colleagues from Simon Fraser University, Yukino Mori and Carol Zaks, who were instrumental in making this event happen. Thank you very much for your knowledge and your support in all these events, and then for being with me from the very beginning through the past year while we were planning this event, and also to our wonderful, talented team, small but mighty, 7 people from the Swiss Consulate in Vancouver. Some of them are here in person, some of them are joining us online, and then for the incredible support. Thank you for joining, and have a nice rest of the day. I'm inviting you to enjoy some lunch and then bring back it here and then continue the dialogue.